Welcome in, everybody. This is Pro Football Enterprises. I am Ben Parker, and that is Shane Ratliff. Austin could not join us tonight, but we'll be back next week. We're doing something a little different tonight, something I really enjoy. It's a method that we applied to free agents back during last off season, and we're applying it now to some of the wide receiver draft picks here tonight. So I'm calling it a wide receiver big board, and it is looking ahead to the 26th draft. But me and Shane are going to take a handful of NFL teams and draft these wide receivers tonight. So instead of working our way through a ranking, as it were, we're going to kind of put ourselves in charge of teams. And the most talented players will probably still go higher up, right? But at a certain point, we may be looking at some need picks as well, or some fit picks along the way as well. I just really, really like that style of talking about these players. The guys you see on the board tonight right now, they won't be on tonight's draft pick. This group right here: Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams, Bryant Westco, T.J. Moore, Cam Coleman. I really like this group. Shane, I'm going to get your opinion real quick on this group in a second. I really like this group, but they're not available for the 26th draft. They won't show up until 27. They're on our watch list. We've already covered them, in fact, in pretty good detail. So stroll over to the playlist and the rest of the channel after you're done here and get the lowdown on those guys. And the two more guys, I just didn't have room for Jeremy Bernard tonight. I know some people do like him. I left him off in favor of some other guys tonight, but I do think he will be drafted. But again, he didn't quite make the cut. We did cover him as well. We go check him out. And Evan Stewart's a guy that we covered, but because of injury, I left him off tonight's work as well. Shane, before we jump into the big board tonight, any thoughts on this group, especially the watch list guys?
Well, I think it's hard, like you said, Ben, to not call this the big board because the
Right.
names that are going to jump
Yes.
out at you this year are all right here. I think for a lot of the guys we're going to discuss tonight, that people are going to tune in to watch some of these other guys and get a chance to see the guys that are going to be draft eligible. So the plus side for them is that they get a little bit of extra exposure because you know that in the NFL, scouts are still going to follow all these guys they know they can't draft because they're going to want to have all their due diligence in knowing that, hey, this guy isn't going anywhere, barring injury. This guy needs to be inside our top 25 when we're going to reset the draft board after the draft. So we even have a couple of guys where they're teammates with some of these non-draftable players. So it's your opportunity to take all those eyes and get them on you and try to make as many plays as you can to try to boost yourself up for your own draft.
It's a great point because we were going to have Ryan Williams' teammate on, but Jeremy got left off. We got Jeremiah Smith's teammate on. Westco and Moore's teammate is on here tonight. And Cam Coleman's teammate is on here tonight. So it's an excellent point. You're right. This group here, this is the real big board. Those five guys on the left, I am ecstatic about those guys. They're better by far. By and large, they are better than the group we're going to be looking at and drafting from tonight. But I still think it's a good group we're looking at tonight, too. It's just not these guys. I'm kind of drooling over these guys. Let's get on with it. Thank you all so much for being here with us tonight. Here's what we did. I'll explain just a little bit, and then we'll jump into it. These are the 16 wide receivers that we picked for tonight, okay? They may not all even be in the draft next year. Somebody may get hurt. A performance may just not be very good. They may hang around in college for another year and make a little more money, all right? But this is the 16 we're focusing on right here. And we picked out 14 teams. So Shane will get 7. I'll get 7. We'll alternate back and forth, AFC, NFC, just drafting these guys. We'll talk about them a little bit. But if you want more talking about these players, we went in depth on all of them. After the show is over, check out the rest of our work on Pro Football Enterprises. There's a whole playlist there where we went through all of these wide receivers in depth, all 23 of them. And then we covered interior offensive linemen. We covered offensive tackles. We covered 12 quarterbacks. We're way over 50 prospects now that we've gone in depth on here. 3 of us, you get 3 different opinions. So please go check that out after tonight's show. So I don't think the draft needs much explanation. People are used to it. So Shane, You've got the Cleveland Browns here. Uh, make your pick, talk your way through a little bit, whatever you want, but you're up first here with the Cleveland Browns.
Okay, Ben. So, I mean, like you said, if you've had an opportunity to watch a couple of the breakdowns we've done on the wide receivers before, I was super high on this guy. I think he's dynamic as a wide receiver. I think he's built like a running back. This week, actually, reading an article about some ways that college players are spending their NIL. I also found out a fact that I didn't know, that his brother is also a professional athlete. So with my first pick, I picked Jordan Tyson out of Arizona State. His brother is also a professional athlete. So again, we're going to go with bloodlines. We're going to go with genetics. I don't think anyone in Cleveland is going to feel bad with having a superior athlete added to the mix. And it gives Joe Falco, Dylan Gabriel, another weapon to put in the arsenal.
I really like Jordan Tyson. There are reasons why I may not draft him top 15, top 20, but I'm considering it. When I look at his work, man, I really like Jordan Tyson. I'm thinking about it. I haven't yet decided where I'm going to land on that exact scale, but boy, to me, first round guy. I really like his work. I like the way he's worked on his game, but he's also talented. So I like all of that. So Cleveland picks him up here with the first pick. You feel pretty good about him in the first round by and large?
I do. I think, like you said, so the star guys are going to be the ones that we can't talk about. I think
Right.
Arizona State has a great quarterback, Sam Levitt, behind him. He's going to have an opportunity to get the ball in his hands. Um, Still should be a pretty good Arizona State team all around. Really, only losing Cam Scadabow. So I think he's going to get a chance to show all the skill he has. The thing for me is he's got the athletic size we're looking for. He's in that 6'2", 6'1" range. He's
Right.
not super tall, but he's also not the 5'6" burner. High level athlete.
Yeah.
You can see already over 1,000 receiving yards, 10 touchdowns, and one of the higher reception rates as well of the guys that we talked about
Mhm.
in this breakdown.
Yeah, I agree. I really do like him. And like you said, the other five guys that we're drooling over for the 27 draft, to me, a lot of them are top 10 type picks. I don't quite have Tyson that high, but I really do like him. And man, almost anywhere on the field, I can use him. He's going to be effective at getting open. I really like what he can do. So the Browns would have him under this scenario. All right, sorry for the sloppy drawing tonight. I really wanted an interactive board tonight. Okay, so this was as good as I could get, keeping some decent graphics. Just gonna mark where everybody's heading to, just like an X and O football field. I'm up with the Saints here. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and grab Carnell Tate. So they're gonna pick up another Ohio State wide receiver. I'm gonna draw it on the board here. Hopefully, not mess everything up too much. Here's Carnell Tate heading to the New Orleans Saints. A lot of things to like about Tate. To me, I've got him in the first round at this point without even really thinking too hard about it. I just don't have him top 15. The 6'3" is nice. The 52 catches and the 700 yards is pretty good. But boy, he's working with a talented core there, so he's going to have somewhat limited opportunities with all the talent there at Ohio State. And then the 14.1 yards per catch. His touchdowns are a little down. So, part of that is he's not necessarily going to be the explosive guy that's going to cash in for a lot of touchdowns anyway. Part of that is, though, he's sharing with guys like Jeremiah Smith and the running backs they had last year. So that does somewhat limit the touchdowns. But he's got good speed. I really like his work over the middle. I really like his size. Just a real kind of a clean cut, square route running. It's like he's got a lot of everything. I don't know that he's elite at a whole lot, but he's got the good hands. Really like him. To me, I watch him and I see first round. So he got the
Mm.
Ben stamp of approval for the first round when I see him. Real quick thought on Carnell Tate, and then it'll be your turn to pick for the Jets.
Well, like you said, everything you mentioned, Ben, I agree with on why that would be the one you're going for. I also think in this one, it's also a good team pick because of what they'd be looking to do. They're breaking in quarterbacks. God only knows what might be on the horizon for the next year, what else they're looking. where that step might be. So if you're going to do that, the best way to ingratiate a new quarterback is to get him as many targets as he can deal with. Um, and like you said, I think the talent level, obviously, we're only picking wide receivers, so no one else is involved in this, but
Yeah.
you can see where he's going to fit into that mold. And he's one of those guys that's kind of on the periphery, I'd say, right about now. When you look at him, you go, yeah, I can think he's a first rounder, but I can also see where a team might let him drop just because of what we talked about throughout other episodes and where his talent
Yeah.
lies.
We're at the point now, and I'll let you talk about it as you make your Jets pick here in just a second. Those are really my two guys that are first round at the moment. I've got other guys that I'm thinking hard about first round, but I've had enough either problems mentioned to me or problems that I see that I'm not yet locked in on any of the rest of these guys in the first round. In fact, some of them I would not draft in the first round, but that right now, this is where the border is for me. It's Tyson and Tate. And the other guys are kind of going to have to play their way into the first round this year, is kind of what I'm looking forward, expecting. So we'll talk about them in a second. But this is where the line is for me personally. All right, you got the Jets. Talk about anything you want and make your pick, man.
So as you said, so for me, Ben, there's two more that I think kind of float around in that first round. I'm going to draft one of them right now for the Jets, and I'll be interested to see if you make the next pick on who that guy is. If you don't, then I'll bring it up for my next selection. But I went with pedigree on this one. I picked Nick Anderson from LSU. The simple fact is, wide receivers drafted in the first round from LSU normally make their teams very happy in their rookie year. So you take a big bodied wide receiver. He's also got one of the largest yards per catch of all the guys we've covered this whole time. So, not
Yes.
only is he tall, he's got the speed. LSU has done an amazing job of producing first round wide receivers. I think if you're the Jets, it gives you another option and another big body, which isn't always the way that they've drafted recently. And I think he'd be a great fit for them.
You're right about pedigree. A couple of things the audience may be yelling at us about, so I'm going to mention them. He barely played at all in 2024. It was either a handful of snaps or none. I forget which. So the stats we're looking at here are from 23. But holy cow, what a year. I mean, you mentioned 10 touchdowns, and I think that was at Oklahoma, actually. 10 touchdowns and 21.1 yards per catch. He was a big play monster. Now, the other thing the audience might be telling us is, hey, he's rough, he's raw, he's not polished. We get it, but the talent is there. You can see it. He's 6'4", 209, got pretty good speed. I mean, and you mentioned it about LSU receivers. It's not never, but it's more than half the time that you pick up an LSU receiver who looks pretty good and he cashes in. I mean, you just know that this region produces these athletes, and even if they're not polished, the athleticism is always there. It just always is. So even if they were pulled in from a different, part of the country, if you're going to make the field at all at LSU, the talent is going to have to be up there, the athleticism. So I really like Nick Anderson. I do need him to show me just a little bit more, but I really, really like him. My gosh. I think you mentioned this with an offensive lineman a few weeks ago. This is the kind of guy that can get me in trouble right here, okay, if I'm a GM. Because I see the explosiveness. I see that really high ceiling. And I got somebody in my room telling me, hey, this guy, maybe we ought to think about him a little bit more. I'm like, no, I love this guy. So I'm going to draft him, But I really do like Nick Anderson. So, yeah, the Jets pick him up here in this scenario. Any final thought here on Nick before we scoot on?
Well, I think just like you said right there, Ben, this is a pick that could certainly get me in trouble. But if I'm picking for the Jets, we've made plenty of terrible draft picks in the past couple of years to tide me over to where if I reach on a guy that's got this type of size, yes, he's a transfer, but he's not transferring from the FCS. He's going from Oklahoma, where he put up big yards.
Right.
He played against the same level of talent that he's going to play against now. you're going to put him in an offense that's more designed for what he's looking for.
Mhm.
I'm willing to go there. The next guy that I told you that would be inside that next group is another transfer, and that'd be Casey Concepcion. And I think the only thing that holds me back from that is because he's a smaller guy. So I think I play him in a different
Right.
position than your number one. He's probably going to end up being more of a slot guy, especially in his first go round in the NFL. Um, I think wide receiver is the one where you make the greatest projection on what it's going to be because
Yeah.
so much of that position is dependent on the talent of the people around them. If you can blaze by everybody, you have great hands, you have a quarterback that can't get you the ball, you're an obsolete piece. Um, where the other side is you could be deficient in route running and a whole bunch of other elements to
Yeah.
a high end wide receiver. And if you've got a quarterback that's got good timing and a rocket arm, they put the ball on you, they can make it look like you know exactly what you're doing when it's actually somebody else protecting you. So um, I would not be surprised if a lot of these guys we're talking about now are one of those ones where wide receiver coach pounds on the table and says, "We got to go get this guy. I can see this guy going for 1,000 yards." And you have a defensive back coach in that same draft that's going, "Well, the NFL guys are going to lock this guy down. He's lucky to get 30 receptions." You know, this is the type of talent that you're going to see. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Nick Anderson is a perfect example of that. But in the NFL, it's a meat market, and you're going to look at that body, you're going to look at that speed, you're going to look at the yardage, and you're going to go, if he did it once, I think we can make him do it again. So,
Yeah, 1,000% agree with everything you just said, and I'll even add to it because I believe in building position groups. So offensive line, I don't have to have an elite O line, but I'm going to build something that has a certain characteristic. We're going to be solid at this. We're going to know what we're all about. I will do that at every position group as I get long enough tenure as a GM. Right. Wide receiver room, I will still do it. But if I get one guy, one high ceiling guy as a wide receiver, I've already kind of made the group because they can stretch the field vertically or horizontally. We can throw touchdowns to them. Even if they're not scoring touchdowns, if they're drawing two defenders on every play, man, I've already changed it with one high ceiling guy. So that's why I'm more tempted, probably at wide receiver, to grab a guy showing potential than I would be, say, maybe at O line or some of the other groups I might be looking at. I might want something a little more solid and dependable there and take a little bit lower ceiling in some cases if there's a question mark like Nick Anderson about just how good they're going to consistently be. So Nick Anderson here goes third out of the group to the Jets. I'm going to go with the Giants. Speaking of getting in trouble, here it comes. Here's a guy I love that has some question marks, red flags. I can deny it, but I love him. So the Giants are going to get him. It's going to be Jacoby Lane out of Southern Cal. 6'4", 195. You can see the production right there. I really like him. Now, speed is an issue. Me, Austin talked about that when we did the in-depth show, right? There's no question about it. So the question gets to become, is he going to be the Treylon Burks or is he going to be more like the T. Higgins? Because both those guys had speed issues heading into the draft, right? Is he going to be an A.J. Brown who had speed questions heading into the draft? Or is he going to be the Mike Williams from Southern Cal like 20 years ago, who I absolutely fell in love with, but was also slow and never really became anything significant at the NFL level? This isn't the current Mike Williams. This is a Mike Williams from 20 years ago. So I really like Jacoby Lane, and I get it. The speed is somewhat of an issue, but I've just seen enough tape to where I like it, and especially if he shows me another year of maybe even more production than 500 yards. But I compare him with Malik Nabers. Nabers provides the speed factor. So if
mm-hmm.
I'm the Giants, I can pull in Jacoby Lane for the size factor. And you even mentioned a guy named Plaxico Burress from the Giants long ago, right? And so it would at least fill that role. I feel like even if he never turns into the guy I hope he might be, which would be the A.J. Brown, T. Higgins level, right? Even if he's never that, I do feel like I've got a guy who can physically produce something, especially in the red zone areas. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel comfortable about that, especially paired with Nabers. That's Jacoby Lane. Go ahead and give us just a quick thought on Lane, and then go ahead and pick for the Titans here.
Well, you mentioned Plaxico Burress, which was the name I brought up when we talked about him. Great hands, not super fast, but the ball seems to find him once you get in the red zone.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you at all in the pick. I think also the fact that you let in with Neighbors, I think that's the key thing. And you talked about building a
Yeah.
room. If
Yeah.
you have a guy that's going to be dynamic and he's the speed guy, I don't need copies of that guy. Like people talk about the New England Patriots and how they got the ball to, those slot receivers, the Wes Welker, the Julian Edelman. You know, every single year they also tried to have a Randy Moss. You need to have no one on this draft board is Randy Moss, but you need to have a big guy that can stretch it
Yes.
and that can go up and go get it when you need it because you can't throw the fade to the slot guy 7 out of 10 times in the red zone.
Right.
They're going to be able to get
Right.
on that. The thing for Lane, like you said, not a ton of speed, but 12 touchdowns is 12 touchdowns. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's you getting the ball in the red zone. There's no chance that defenders don't know that you're the target they're looking for, and he still comes down with the ball. So I think he fills that spot well. And I think again, just like you alluded to, you build that room and you got to have bits and pieces that are going to make the surrounding talent even better. So if you have somebody where now you know that we can just throw the fade, that opens the whole other side of the field to Neighbors too, because you're not going to be able to just bracket cover him. You're going to have to put
Yeah.
somebody over the top.
No, that's true. And you mentioned, listen, I've even said this myself. It's okay to duplicate sometimes because we watch the Patriots do it with a two tight end system and a two slot receiver system. But you're right. The Patriots always had a speed guy who could stretch the field vertically to keep the pressure off of, those guys who didn't have that speed, right? If you don't have the guys who can push it downfield, the defense just collapses and swallows all the space and all the passing lanes. So that duplication of types is now worthless because you couldn't get the safeties off and you couldn't get the linebackers off. You just couldn't do it. So got to have that. And again, even though I love Jacoby Lane, I do not look at him as being a guy who can carry a room himself. I don't see that level of talent. But I do see a guy that physically can dominate enough to where if he's got a good speed guy on the other side, they can help each other, like you just said. Titans, go ahead and make a pick, man.
So for the Titans, it's exactly the next guy I said that I thought kind of sat in that first round. That's
Yeah.
Casey Concepcion. If you get the opportunity, go back. I know Ben and I have said it quite a few times already tonight, but the breakdown that Austin does on him after a chance of really seeing him to play a ton at North Carolina State,
Yeah.
the guy is an athlete. He does great in the slot, well bred on running routes, carries the ball like a tailback when he has the ball in his hands. As you can see, the breakdowns, he can bust, he's had 10 touchdowns. He's had 6 touchdowns since the thing. Texas A&M is an emerging team again. The other thing for him, I think that he fits. You got Cam Ward now as Titans starting quarterback. You're going to look for a guy that can be athletic and move the ball around, find the open spots for when Ward has to run around. They're trying to build an offensive line there. You have one of the better offensive line coaches in Bill Callahan there as well. So this is one where I risk it. I'm going to go for a guy that might be slightly undersized for what I'm going to ask him to do, but I think he's going to do a job that I don't have anybody on my team currently that fits that build. So let's put a dynamic slot player in there and let's see what we can do.
Yeah, I listen. I agree. I love Concepcion. Me personally, I'm looking at him somewhere in the second round. The size is really the only thing that keeps him out of the first round for me. I like everything else. The technical work is there. The hands are there. 2 years of production with the 23 numbers, obviously being better than 24 numbers. He's heading to Texas A&M. I think he'll get used very well there. Have a big season there. I really like him. So under this scenario, the Titans pick him up coming off of our draft here tonight. I've got the Carolina Panthers next. I'm really stuck here. There are guys I like, but I don't really want to add them with Tetaroa McMillan. And so, listen, here's the guys. Williams out of Clemson, Boston out of Washington, Surratt out of Indiana. I really like those guys. But if I'm Carolina, I've got Tetairoa McMillan, and he's fast enough, but he's not elite burn speed. And I don't really want to add another big guy on the other side of him unless I have to. I would, but I'd really rather go and grab one of these faster guys. And so I'm really kind of settling in here on Zachariah Branch and Makai Lemon. And,
Mhm.
I like both guys. They're both small, but the speed is there and the production is there. Ultimately, I'm going to land on Makai Lemon. When I watch him at SoCal, got 14.7 yards per catch. He's almost like a quarterback's best friend. I mean, you talk about being able to get open in a number of different ways underneath and then also make some big plays too. Um, I really like him. So for us, the Panthers, we're going to pull Makai Lemon here out of Southern Cal. So again, I'm tempted by the bigger guys, but it kind
Mhm.
of went in the first round. I say first round. In the early part of this draft, I went for the big guys who I really liked, and now I'm just kind of with big guys that I like versus smaller speed guys is the choices I'm having to make. For Carolina tonight, right now, I'm grabbing Makai Lemon. Quick thoughts on Lemon, and then your turn with your beloved Patriots coming up next year.
Well, I think the way that you explained it, Ben, really fills out why you make that pick. So with Makai Lemon, you already have drafted a big wide receiver. For Tetairoa McMillan, it's all about catch radius.
Right, right.
He has a huge wingspan. He gets up there. It looks like he's palming a volleyball in his hands when he goes for it. And so you're looking for somebody who can play off of that. I would say that Xavier Leggett has underperformed greatly for them, and they reached out and got
Yep.
him. That's another big guy. So they recently just cut Hunter Renfrow as well. So what does it
Yeah.
hurt for you to go get a smaller guy that can get in and out of breaks, play some special teams for you, and kind of fill that role? Um, I think it's a great pick for them. Like you said, obviously we're only drafting wide receivers. I don't know where he's really going to fall once the draft comes. I think this year is
Right.
huge for him for what he
Mm-hmm.
could perform. So just to wrap up that Lemon pick, as you said, for the Patriots. So the same point that you made, Ben, I'm going to make in reverse. So as a Patriots, in the beginning, they were all over the board on, do we draft an offensive lineman right now, or do we go get a wide receiver and then we'll get a
Yeah.
lineman in the back half? I think based on the preseason, a lot of Patriots fans are happy with the Will Campbell picks. They're not going to disagree with that.
Okay.
I think offensive line wise, I think he's had a pretty dominant start, so they'll be happy with him. For me, I went with Josh Cameron on this pick. I think he's 6'1", not over the top on height, but he's 225. He plays in a pass heavy offense. Has had no problem scoring the ball and gets used in a bunch of different ways. I think that opens up a lot of opportunities for you if you're the Patriots. You have a quarterback that's proven to have a strong arm. And I think that's a position you go. The other one that I looked at in here, this is the old Patriots where you kind of try to outsmart everybody. And
Right.
I thought that this is a spot where it won't happen in the first round, won't happen early, but Bryce Lance is a guy watch out of this, as well as
Yes.
Boston, because I
Right.
think those are the two guys that are going to entice them with what they can do.
It's a great point. And listen, the Josh Cameron first. I I didn't exactly know where to put Cameron, but this range I'm 100% comfortable with. And I can even see some people who might even pull him higher, depending on, again, where these guys end up shuffling to over the next year. And I could see him shuffling a little bit lower, depending on what some of these guys do. But Cameron, boy, Cameron's a football player. I think that's a great way to put it. And that's a great fit for what the Patriots often do. Now, I don't mean to just throw him in a football player category, but he is that. He's got the physicality. He does several different things. And, he even contributes on I forget if it's kick returns or punt returns, but he contributes that way as well, and maybe he wouldn't do that at the NFL, but it does show that he can do several things. I really like Josh Cameron. So him going to the Patriots, not surprising. All right. Who's up next? The Seattle Seahawks. We are going to pick up Elijah Surratt out of Indiana. Is a guy that I really do like. I don't know that I like him enough to pick him in the first round, but I really do like him. He can win deep, but I don't know that he's going to do a lot of that at the NFL level. It's just that he can, given the right cornerback and the right down and distance scenario, he can. But boy, he wins at the boundary. He has a nice, very efficient in route kind of a route system that he works. He's got decent speed, but not great. He's got the size at 6'2". He even looks a little bit taller than that. So I don't know if that's arm length that I'm looking at or what, but I like his I like his size, his height, and then it produced, man. 18.1 yards per catch, 8 touchdowns, almost 1,000 yards. And there weren't like a lot of weapons there at Indiana for everybody else to focus on. They could focus on
Mm-hmm.
him. So I like Elijah Surratt. Somewhere probably in the second round is where I think I'm going to end up settling on him, unless he just shows me that extra speed gear, which I don't think I'm going to see next year. I am tempted by Williams. I'm tempted by Boston. I like those guys, but I just like Surratt better. Surratt, I just really enjoy his work, and I feel like he's put a lot of work into his game in addition to the fact that he's talented. And then the fit there in Seattle, they've got the smaller speed guy with Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Mm-hmm.
They've also got, for however long, they've got Cooper Kupp, who's kind of filling the, now the possession mesh route type stuff, and then the other stuff that Cooper Kupp can do with his routes. And then they also picked up Torrey Horton, who I do like as the extreme height guy out of Colorado State during this past draft. He's 6'3", 6'4", with decent speed. But Elijah Surratt would be, for me, the more projecting, the more dependable guy that you just count on to produce. I don't see him ever exploding and being, an all-pro or anything like that. But I do look at him as an NFL caliber guy that you could consistently get 40 to 60 catches from and pick up, 600 to 800 yards a season. Maybe more than that. It's probably a little low on the yardage side, but I like that. I think that would help out Seattle over the years. Quick thoughts on Surratt, and then you're up at the Raiders.
For me, the most important thing with Surratt is every single time he's been asked to step up a level in talent and competition, he's shown through. So,
Yeah.
started at James Madison, produced at a high enough level there, goes to Indiana, a team that had really no reason why anybody would think that they were going to be competitive, and they had an outstanding year. He was a big part of it. And then you're going to reload and give him another chance this year. I think you mentioned it before for Josh Cameron. I think Surratt is a football player. I think he's going to do whatever you
Yeah.
ask him to do. And I
Yeah.
think he has no problem sticking his face in there when you need somebody to block or play off of that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great point.
So
All right.
on my pick for the Raiders, we've talked about him in the last two selections as a guy that we passed up and we didn't end up going with. But
Right.
I'm going to go with Denzel Boston. Again, family bloodlines. He's got great height, great fight for the ball.
Yeah.
The Raiders are going to try to build an offensive juggernaut, and I think you add him, and we just keep adding players as much as we can until we can get this offense to where they are right now in the wet. You're going to have to score points. It's the way it is. Kansas City is always going to be Kansas City. The Chargers are going to control the ball, and you're going to have to. And Denver, there's no easy out. So if you're the Raiders, you got to tie your horses to something. I think Boston has showed well. I think he'll look even better this year at Washington than he did in the last, and that's saying something.
Yeah. Denzel Boston is a guy I've been thinking about now for what, 4 or 5 picks. He's in that mix, but I just had either guys I liked better or needs I needed more, one or the other. That's why he did drop here. I do like Denzel Boston. You mentioned the size, the physicality, the fight for the football. There's some speed there. That's why they use him on. I forget. I think it's punt returns that they use him on there at Washington. Um, and then the production is there. So I like all of that. And again, we went in depth on these guys, including Denzel on our playlist. Go check it out. But I do like Denzel Boston. I didn't mean to drop him to this point. That wasn't a plan. I don't look at any of these guys and say, hey, I'm going to drop him all the way down to the 16th pick or something. I just tonight. This is why I love this format. We're getting the guys we want for the team we're in charge of, right? And it's like, wow, okay, this guy failed for whatever reason. Sometimes it's not the talent, sometimes it is just the fit. I have the Falcons now. I am picking Williams from Clemson. Get through all this maze of lines here. Show's about over anyway, so I'm not too much. As far as talent goes, I look at Williams similar as what I look to Surratt from Indiana, as far as what I expect them in terms of overall numbers and career to be. Williams looks like a productive guy at the NFL level. I can count on him. I do like Surratt a little bit better. That's because of the height. I mean, Williams is sitting here at 5'11", maybe he's a little taller than that, but not much. He's got the production. He knows how to get open. He knows how to catch. I really do like Williams to be able to produce at the NFL level, just not quite as much as Surratt is where I'm at. So Williams has got the speed to win deep. You saw that a good bit there at Clemson, but not the elite speed to consistently beat NFL defensive backs. And that leaves me back with his underneath stuff, which is fine, but again, the height thing is what got me down here with Williams. But the Falcons could use receivers like that, guys who can produce something. The Falcons, once you get past Drake London, there's kind of a fall off there at the consistent production standpoint, and Williams would feel that in theory under this scenario. So Williams coming in for the Falcons. You have our beloved friend Simon Short's Steelers. Feel free to toss out any thoughts you got on Williams and then pick for the Steelers.
I think Williams, like you said, he's a talent, but there's always like a little something where you go, I'm going to take another guy over him. And I don't think it's production. I think he's going to have another great year in Clemson. But he just sat there until you find a team that's looking for that type of build. I think it's a great pick for the Falcons, like you said, with what they're looking for. You need another guy to help take some of the pressure off of Drake London. I think he's done excellent at the beginning of his career and shown why he was taken so early on. And then that kind of lands me to make my next selection, which if you're the Steelers, your hope is this wide receiver plays well for 2 years, then he'll do something crazy and you're going to ship him out of town. So I went with Malachi Fields on this one from Notre Dame. Great height, great size. Was the only weapon for Virginia the last couple of years. Going to take a step up, play at Notre Dame, see how he fills out in that group. And the Steelers' MO is draft these 6'4", 205 to 225 guys. Have them explode for a year where you think you really have them, and then something happens. I don't know if there's something in the water in Pittsburgh. I don't know if the Pirates ownership talks to them. I'm not quite sure what happens, but they get downgraded after the first couple of years, and then it's a race to see how fast you can get them out of here. I hope for better for Fields as a Notre Dame fan, but I think that he fits what they look for. There's a mold that they look for in guys, and I think he fits that. Just athletic enough, big enough, can help in the run game, can do a bunch of other things for you. The Steelers are really in this middle ground where they've got to decide what's going to happen in the next couple of years. And we'll see how this year pans out for them, because I think it's going to be very important for how some other dominoes fall later on.
Malachi Fields is a guy that I drooled over when I watched the tape because physically, I don't know what people are going to do with him, right? Now, speed-wise at the NFL level, I don't think they'll have any real trouble keeping up with him. But physically, he's just so darn big, 6'4", 220. I think that's going to present problems, and he is fast enough to play on the outside, kind of like a slot tight end, I guess, is going to be somewhere, his type of role. Not going to beat you deep very often, but I really I want to add this guy to my team, man. I just don't know which team yet, and which round. But this is a good pick here. Malachi Fields is a good round, a good spot for him. All right, I really like this guy. So the physical, you see the numbers there. We'll see how he works out in Notre Dame this year. So I'm looking forward to it. Arizona is a team that I'm split on. I've got some speed guys here, which would go great with. I've already got McBride at tight end, and I've got Marvin Harrison at wide receiver. So I've got that. I've got some speed guys here with Zachariah Branch, Eric Singleton. I'm certainly thinking about them, and then I'm thinking about the potential guys with Bryce Lance, Nick Harbor. I really am kind of split between those two pairings here, and I could be talking to any of them. Ultimately, I think I'm just going to go ahead and grab Eric Singleton out of Auburn for Arizona. You and I mentioned, and Austin mentioned, there's a lot of speed there, very, very fast. I think one of the fastest we've got on this board. I won't guarantee he's the fastest, but he is very fast. Matter of fact, Nick Carver's probably faster, but Eric Singleton, very fast. I didn't see a super developed game, and he's very small, 5'10", 180. So that's going to drop him for me. But there is production there, and he's doing it at a Southeastern Conference school against the best in college football. So I feel like he belongs in the NFL somewhere, and Arizona will add that speed, that underneath speed, to the room we've already got. So feel free to talk about Singleton, and then you've got the Chargers for your last pick.
Well, first of all, then I think Singleton's an excellent pick for what Arizona's trying to do. You mentioned it. You got a established Pro Bowl level tight end in McBride.
Yeah.
You have your Marvin Harrison Jr. that's over the top, dynamic. So if I already have those two larger guys that I can get the ball to, why am I not going to look for a speedster? Arizona has in the last couple of years tried to draft a guy that fits that mold, unsuccessfully as of right now. So I wouldn't be surprised at that. I also like the two guys that you mentioned, as your Bryce Lance and Nick Harbor. If you're gonna make a stretch run for somebody, I think those are the guys you look for. And I think in this next pick with the Chargers, I think you have Jim Harbaugh, who's going to have no problem taking one of these projected guys. For me on this one, I think talent-wise and production-wise, I would go Bryce Lance, but I think that the Chargers will go with Harbor because the mix of athletic talent that he has, you really can't duplicate. So if you're Harbaugh and you're a guy that gets angry when you drop passes, in pregame, I think that he's the type of coach that will work with Harbor to get some of those things out from underneath him. I think you also need a guy sometimes that's just going to pat you on the back and tell you, "Hey, we have you. We know what you can do, and I'm only going to ask you to do a few things." I think that falls right into what the Chargers are looking for. You mentioned current Mike Williams. That was a role that they had him do. You have a talented quarterback. You're going to have a run game. You have a young and talented offensive line. I think you can take a risk here and try to get you just an absolute, Godzilla of a wide receiver here and unleash him on the rest of the teams.
Once again, another receiver I was really excited about, Nick Harbor. I expect him to take a big jump up this year. I really do. I expect that. If he doesn't, I'm going to be a little ticked off at him because it's going to show that he didn't spend the offseason working the way he should have. But he's got the 6'5" height. He's got the 235 size, but he has elite level speed in terms of measurable over in the track and field side of things. Can he translate that fully at the football level? He needs to show me that this year. I really love Nick Harbor. If you hadn't have drafted him, I was going to. If you had taken Harbor, which you did, I was going to take Bryce Lance with the Cowboys here. Bryce Lance, we talked about it. He's playing at a small level, and it does cross my mind why nobody was able to successfully talk him into coming to a bigger program, right? Maybe he's just very loyal to NDSU, and that's fine. But 6'3", 209, love the tape, 17 touchdowns, really like Bryce Lance. I would love to get a chance to add him to the Cowboys receiving room. let him grow and develop more there against bigger competition. Talk about anybody you want to here. There's two guys left: Zachariah Branch, Jaden Greathouse didn't make our draft board tonight. Any surprises, real quick, and then we're done, man.
I mean, I don't think there's a big surprise on having both of them left. Like we talk about Zachariah Branch and the talent that's at Georgia. He has a chance to be great this year, but again, we're looking at a guy
Yeah,
with one touchdown last year. And the thing for Gay, I think he's great for a Notre Dame wide receiver, but I I think when you look at some of the other talent, there's nothing that specifically jumps out for you. So I wasn't too surprised. I think that this is going to be a draft where some of those tweener guys get a lot more play than even some of the higher production guys. So I wouldn't be surprised to see people reach up to get Lance, or just like we talked about Nick Harbor, where you just go, I I mean, I get everything that you're saying, and I get that he drops balls, I get that he hasn't done this, but literally, where
yeah,
am I going to find a 6'6" guy that weighs 240 pounds and runs faster than 90% of the humans that are on the planet? It, the NFL does this. They get enamored with people that can just do, the amazing. And the the growth of the game and where you see that type of thing going is that's like people talk about Jordan Mailata. That was a giant guy on a rugby field. They saw the sheer size and speed and went, "Hey, I think I can turn that into something." The
yeah,
problem is you need a guy that wants to do that, and you need a high level coach that can do that. So that's where those guys
right.
fall under. Like I said, for Harbor, if you get Jim Harbaugh as your coach, I trust that he's going to put the work in to try to make him even better. Uh, but that's also where you draft these guys. The NFL is not where you learn how to play your position. You really need to have an
Yeah,
understanding, because once you get to the NFL, they need you to be ready to go. They can't hide you. You need to be ready. So I think the guys that we left off, I'm not surprised with. You look at this year and the guys that are getting cut right around this time in the NFL. There's a list of guys that produced all right around this level that are all going to be looking for a team in the next week. So,
I agree with what you're putting out there, especially this idea of developmental guys. And I understand for every guy out there who was a project, a developmental guy and got drafted and turned into a star, there's probably 10 more that didn't. You're dealing with percentages here. So I'm willing to draft these guys who are undeveloped, they're raw, they need some development. But I'm not going to I'm trying to not jump on them in the first and second rounds. I really want to do my developmental guys back in third and fourth rounds, maybe fifth rounds. That's really where I would love to posit these guys. And maybe I'll let somebody else take the chance,
mm-hmm.
unless if I know I've got a guy like the Eagles offensive line coach who I know he can develop a certain position group, whatever it is, defensive back, wide receiver. I may hand him a project from a higher round just because the talent seems so obvious. But by and large, I really want my guys to have shown that they've done it at the college level, and maybe I'll cut out some of the ceilings sometimes in some of these guys. So anyway, if you're listening, thank you so much. If we covered your favorite team and you have a comment about that, toss that in the comments. If you've been studying some of these college football players here, and again, this board is going to shuffle a lot. I mean, a lot. Even we ourselves, come draft time, we'll have reshuffled this deck here. But if you got some opinions on some of the guys here that you'd like them higher or lower, put that in the comments. Just add to the knowledge. All right. Try to not come in and be a jerk, but just add to the knowledge base that we've got here on this channel. We would really love for you to do that. So toss it on them there. Shane, thank you very much, man. I really enjoyed this. We got a whole bunch more coming. So, everybody, thank you for listening. And this is Pro Football Enterprises. Have a great one. Goodbye.